Paradigm Shift.
An educational comedy.
It's not a cause, not a movement.
It's not a social group you can slap a label onto.
It's an idea. It's an intention.
It's an intuition.
A mindset in which reality can be explored.
It's a genuine expression,
Discernment.
critical thinking, and imagination.
To look inward upon ourselves.
To better understand the external world around us.
And yes,
Few egos are bound to be bruised.
With our silly, zany, politically incorrect,
George Carlin built style of going about things.
real and raw honesty.
Which invites you to be
to the fullest.
Hello everyone, my name is Richard Hamilton and welcome to Paradigm Shift and Educational Comedy. I'm taking point on this episode. This episode is doubling as a college assignment. And today we are going to be talking about my journey with social media and how social media has affected me, my interpersonal communication journey, as it were. And the main point that I want to get started with is primarily why I chose this project. This is more for classmates more than it is for the YouTube audience, but if you are here, welcome. And for the classmates that will be watching this later, also good to see you. So essentially, I chose to do this project on the internet and social media and how they affect me both positively and negatively, as well as other people in general. The reason I chose this topic is because social media always plays such an important part in my life, not just for business and school, but for the people that I interact with. And I just figured it was kind of finally time to really put all the puzzle pieces together from my previous journey and experience on the internet since 2011. It's been a really interesting journey. I've made a lot of good friends. A good friend of mine who runs Paradigm Shift in Educational Comedy, Dave Kelso, who's on the call with me right now. He is muted. I am taking charge on this episode just because it's a requirement for this personal improvement project that I'm discussing to you on. But he is the head guy of Paradigm Shift in Educational Comedy. He's been around since, well, I'd have to ask him. He is right here. Dave, how long have you been doing Paradigm Shift in Educational Comedy? Like, when did you start it?
Just give me 1 second and I'll answer that. I'm just doing something in the background right quick. Just give me 1 quick second.
Okay. Well, Dave will answer that momentarily. I know he's been at it for several years, though. PSEC, I'll just go over PSEC just really quick, kind of what it's about. He can go into more detail here in a few moments. Essentially, what we do on Paradigm Shift in Educational Comedy is we talk about all various manner of subjects. We talk everything from politics to, obviously humor, which is in the name, and everything in between. We talk about technology, science, just the world in general, how it affects us, just the day-to-day. It just depends on what we're motivated to talk about, what we want to bring up. But I figured instead of doing a PowerPoint or doing some other form of standard presentation, I would present to you in this more real-time format.
Sorry, I didn't know I was going to get called upon so soon, and somebody had messaged me on Skype, actually. Interesting synchronicity, which is one of the other things we talk about, how synchronicities are coincidences, or shall we say coincidences, things which do coincide, but we don't always understand the, the everything behind it, and the reasoning. My friend Neil Gar, who we have had on Paradigm Shift and Educational Comedy before, so you can look all that up. He said, basically telling me hello, asking me how I am, and asking me if I still do the PSEC stuff, which obviously I do. And he said he was wondering if he could come on anytime soon to have a chat about 2018 and of course his favorite topic in the whole wide world, the noetic sciences. And he was saying that the synchronicity was he was about to message me on Facebook, and then there's a pop-up that came up at the exact same time saying I'm on Skype. So this is one of those coincidences where everything is just kind of coinciding. And he actually just messaged me saying that he's watching us right now. So hello, Neil. And if you didn't see it already, I just basically explained the synchronicity, as we were talking about synchronicity and the Skype synchronicity, and how, yeah, everything just kind of becomes a synchronistic freaking echo chamber. That's how my life usually goes. I'm not really surprised. It is what it is, and that's how things always are. So yeah, I've been doing Paradigm Shift and educational comedy since 2011. There is kind of an unofficial, like, 2010 short season that, shall we say, ended up canceled because originally it was me and my girlfriend at the time that had
But
started
for the audience, essentially, it's been 6 years.
well,
somewhere
7.
or almost 7. Yeah, 7.
No, this is the 7th year. 2011 was the first year, 2012 the second year, 2013 the third year. So yeah, this is 2017. So this is the 7th year, and we're going to be going into 2018, which will be the 8th year. So in short,
Yeah.
we've been doing it for a while. Like you
Yeah.
said, sometimes we have guests on for certain topics. I mean, obviously there's the PSEC crew, me, you, Katarina, Kristen, my dad sometimes gets on, Katie, Paul, people like that. And of course, we've had guests such as, Rebecca Jernigan and Neil Gar, of course, and Max Egan and Vinny Eastwood. And we've had Patrick,
But anyway,
so on, etc.
yeah. All that aside, I want to get more back into on course with the project.
Alrighty, going back into Muteland.
Anyway, yeah, for the viewing audience and for class members, that's something you can look up. All of that stuff is online. It is on YouTube. And if you are curious for some of the other various hangouts that have been done, that have been aired, those are all available. They're all online. They're all there, and they're not going anywhere. I've been part of PSEC since 2014. That's good. My really nice skull candy. See, this is the beauty of real-time interaction. It can be sometimes, depending on how the day's been, it can be very ease and flow, or it can be just kind of a mix of whatever. And I'm okay with that. But anyway, back to my original point. I've been with PSEC since 2014, and how I got involved in PSEC and friendship with Dave Kelso is I was dealing with a very, very crazy family issue in my own physical realm of things, and it got very out of hand. And I just kind of, well, no, I didn't kind of, I did. I finally stood up to this family member in question and basically told them off. And there was some very crazy backlash over that, legal backlash that did occur. And it ended up dissolving into nothing. And we just haven't spoken since, but that's okay because she's toxic personality in my environment anyway. But that's how I got involved with PSEC. It was a very crazy family event dealing with a narcissist, and really forced me to step into my own sovereignty. That's one of the many journeys or positive aspects that the internet, and by extension social media, has done for me. It's allowed me to step into my own sovereignty, to be myself, and to just be okay with all of the pauses and the mispronunciations that I can sometimes do on videos. It does happen. It's been a long day, so I am just, going with my own flow and own pace, unscripted here. So if I kind of stutter a little bit or, pause awkwardly, just bear with me here. I'm, doing this as I go along, but I will mention how my personal improvement project has affected me here in just a few short moments. So essentially, you guys know basically what I've chosen to do why I chose to do my project. And essentially going back to my initial point, the internet has been very influential on my life for the last 7 years, actually. 2011 was when I got my first computer and got hooked up to the internet. It's kind of synchronistic with PSEC and all of that. Synchronicities tend to happen quite often with us here at PSEC. We talk about that quite a bit. But the internet has been a real eye-opener for me. And just like any tool, it can be used responsibly or irresponsibly. And let's be honest, everybody's used it for both purposes. But more to the responsible aspects, I've discovered more about myself. I'm still in that process of learning how to be more confident, to be more okay with myself, and to just embrace who I am in terms of my own sovereignty and who I want to be. So essentially, I'll go into a little bit of background here with narcissism and some of the more negative effects of the internet. So I come from a very awkward family, and when I started out on the internet, I used to be very, very narcissistic. I used to be very insecure. Used to be one of those super hardcore, I'll just put a buzzword out there. I used to be one of those really super hardcore, typical, stereotypical type conservative conspiracy theorists out there who used to really rage at the machine. And really that was my own insecurity just kind of lashing out. And I used the internet as just kind of an escape. A lot of my family members never really listened to me. I felt like I was ignored when I was younger. I felt like, nobody really cared what I had to say. So the internet was really kind of a means for me at the time to vent, to be able to get out there, to get my thoughts heard. It was a place where I could go to. And I think the internet in a lot of ways is that way for many people. And, going into the personal improvement project, and reading just kind of how people are on the internet, through flaming, like our interplay textbook talks about the art and practice of flaming. Let me go to it here. Where is it? I will find it. It is in here. But anyway, the interplay textbook, it is in chapter 1. It talks about the practice of flaming, which is essentially where people will go on message boards or IM chats and just essentially scream, obscenities, or, just rage out super hard and just throw their insecurities and psychological projections at other people. Well, I used to be that kind of person, so I know what those type of people tend to think. I can't read their mind, but I've been there. I know how that is, and I used to be very insecure in who I was. So, what a better place, no better place to go than to be anonymous and to just post all these various insulting, demeaning things towards other people and just kind of get some sort of rise out of it. Or just, do an internet sort of like saber rattling, just arguing with people for argument's sake, not really being productive or moving forward anywhere. Rather just arguing just to argue, just to hear yourself talk. I used to do that a lot. And I never felt like I was getting anywhere. I just felt more insecure. I felt like I was more deep buried in my own misery. I never felt like I was accomplishing anything. But for a more positive example of social media, I do use social media to keep an eye on my family, family members that I do care about. And obviously, like, stay in touch with long distance friends that have become like family in and of themselves, by their own right, just because of how much they've helped me. Like Dave, he's helped me through hell and high water, pretty much. And I imagine who knows what we'll face in the far-fetched future. There's probably all kinds of crazy stuff out there that we'll probably endure and see. But internet in basic sense, I've used it besides being insecure, narcissistic in my past. I've used it to keep an eye on family, friends, graduations, deaths, marriages, births, all of the basic stuff that you tend to do. That's what I've used the internet for. Just to keep an eye on, keep tabs on people that I care about. Let's see. Kind of got a little script thing here. I'm just trying to be a little bit tired, so just bear with me here. Let's see. And also the more obvious, I've used the internet to celebrate success, hang out with friends, and talk about good things, bad things. It's all stuff that I've done on the internet's just really affected me in so many ways. It's really hard to put into words. I can write about it all day, but to actually put it into words and sit here and talk about it in a speech, that's a little bit different, and especially one that's just kind of spur of the moment. But anyway, I am going to hand it over to Dave for a minute, and he can kind of give some compare and contrast here just for his journey and just kind of what he's seen and, how the internet's affected him. Just, kind of a short little thing on how he's been affected positively and negatively by the internet and social media by extension. And then we'll just continue on with this conversation. So go ahead.
Alrighty, well, I can definitely relate on everything you said there, especially when it comes to the whole flame wars and things like that. I'm not going to go into a big full detailed history about all this, but in as brief of terms as I could possibly say, one of the things that I was originally into as far as online stuff is something called the BBS scene, which does still exist. For those who don't really know what it is, basically it's a type of server that you can run, and it has message boards and games and files and all the basic stuff that you would expect on your average website, but it gives a lot more power to what type of services and stuff you can run, because it's not just the web. The internet isn't just the web, and there's all sorts of shall we say protocols that normally would be reserved for the corporate level of things. So this kind of gives that kind of corporate level power and capability to the average individual, so that they can have fun and play with that. And though there are free and open source softwares and all that, there's also the pay software too. But needless to say, it's been a big thing in the history of the internet itself. Most people don't know about it, and its primary premise was creativity. Creativity, innovation, and invention, and working together, and community spirit, and so on and so forth. One of many of the big websites to come out of the BBS scene has been DeviantArt, which I've been an active member on for a long time, and so is Richard. As a matter of fact, I met Richard through DeviantArt, and even though DeviantArt doesn't run a BBS server per se, and they never have. People that are from the BBS scene originally started DeviantArt, but needless to say, the focus was creativity and innovation and all that, and communication, and it had slash has its own social media aspect in its own right called EchoMail. And besides running Malcavia BBS, I also ran an EchoMail network called ExpressItNet, and I created that kind of out of angst against FidoNet, FIDONET, which is the largest EchoMail network on the planet, which we jokingly referred to as FidoNet, FIGHT-O-net, because of all of the network politics and narcissism and egotistical bullshit. And I guess that was kind of a reflection of all the insecurities inside of myself that I wasn't willing to face at the time. So similarly to Richard, I was kind of raging against the system, as it were. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to start ExpressNet, rah rah, and and for a while we even had in the EchoMail network we had a flame war message area, because in the attempt to try to take any flaming stuff that was going on in any of the other areas and kind of quarantine it to one area, but that really ended up just kind of backfiring. It did the opposite of what I was intending, and it actually encouraged more flaming than it discouraged, and it was just a mess. And I eventually left the scene because the world just started becoming an increasingly more chaotic and contrasty place. And of course, people have their own lives and families and this and that, and the bad economy and just all this other stuff that really started distracting them. So mostly the majority of what's left in the current scene is the people are very talented, but there's still all this narcissistic egotism that's
Hey, Dave.
running rampant. Yeah. Needless to say, it's a similar story to Rich. And when I exited the BBS scene and moved into things like DeviantArt and YouTube and so on and so forth, and met people like Richard and Katarina and so on, I started to learn what's more important about life.
I just wanted to add something. I remember when I first did my first PSEC hangout with you. That was in 2014. I can't remember if that was December Strangeness.
No, it wasn't. It was
it wasn't.
It was red light. It was red light, green light. Remember?
That's right. Yeah, but you remember how going into insecurity and all that stuff. You remember how paranoid I used to be about my name being like associated with anything?
Yeah.
I used to be so paranoid about that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I don't want, it was just one of those things, based out of narcissism. And that also reminds me, I was doing research in my midterm paper, and it wasn't a direct correlation, but it really hit home. It wasn't surprising, but at the same time, it was cool to see the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
According to NCBI and Psychology Today, I can pull the numbers up directly, actually. Let me pull that up really quick. Yeah, so according to ncbi.gov, which I will also give the full name of that, it would be NCBI. Where is it? Got a whole slew of information here. Come on, buddy. Where are you? I'll find you. Oh boy. There it is. National Center for Biotechnology Information. That's the name of, and that's the name. So according to the National Center of Biotechnology Information, researchers examined 200 profiles. 43.5% of them were female with a mean age of 20 years old, so around my age. and 2.5% of them met the criteria for manic depressive episodes. And researchers also found that 25% of profiles displayed depressive symptoms. And interestingly enough, in correlation, I was reading a Psychology Today article called "Is Facebook Really a Playground for Narcissists?" And a gal by the name of, this is the beauty of real-time interaction, because you get to see me just for who I am and all of those pauses. It's probably one of the most chill presentations I've ever done, but that's okay. Okay, where are you? Oh, I'll just look at the actual article itself. Bloody A. That way I can give you the full name, so that way all you classmates can go look that up if you're so interested in doing so. Oh, come on, technology, cooperate with me here. There we go. Okay, where is it? Catalina Toma, Dr. Catalina Toma. Okay, so that's her full name. And according to her research, well, to me, this is kind of like saying, okay, the sky's blue, the grass is green. Not surprising, but you know, it's good to see these numbers and to see, you know, some official information on it. She basically was saying that sites like Facebook are havens for narcissists. And I also want to go into page 30 here in my textbook in the media clip area about The Social Network. And it was basically a movie that they did about Mark Zuckerberg. And of course, there's all of these online memes about Mark Zuckerberg, you know, the man who's not human, you know, who's trying to understand what it means to be human. And I personally find those kind of funny just because he's a jerk. He acts like a jerk. But we all use Facebook, you know. I'm not knocking the platform. You know, I use it. I'm guilty, you know, but I can still have an opinion about the guy who started it. I don't think he's a nice guy at all. He's arrogant, and I think he's full of himself, but that's totally another discussion for another time. But anyway, in the textbook, it says on page 30, in this character study, Facebook creator Mark Zuckerberg is played by Jesse Eisenberg, is portrayed as a genius at computer programming and meeting the needs of the marketplace. At the same time, he is a disaster in the domain of personal relationships. You know, so I find it kind of funny that, you know, here's this, but it makes so much sense when you put all the pieces together. So you have this guy who's terrible with interpersonal relationships, doesn't know how to relate to anybody, and he creates this website that, you know, through correlation and discernment, you know, here's all these manic depressive people, you know, who have narcissistic viewpoints and are very insecure. And I know because there was a time in my life where I was both depressed and both very narcissistic. So I can say from my own personal experience that these two things do correlate. You know, so here's this perfect social media platform where all these narcissists just flock to. And even nowadays online, I mean, I look at the geopolitical sphere, you know, I look at all these groups like Antifa or, you know, people in the truth movement or conservatives or liberals or whatever, you know, political spectrum, you know, white supremacists, whatever political spectrum or whatever faction you want to put them in. And they all act like narcissists. I mean, you watch the videos, like that one gal that was, you know, screaming on social media after Hillary Clinton lost the election, you know, talking how about she wanted to kill herself, you know, I think I need an ambulance, you know. Tell me, you know, it's so sad to see people like that, to see all of these narcissists. I can't help but have just complete compassion for these people. You know, not to say that I have to agree with what they're doing or like what they're doing or even like them as individuals, but, you know, I still recognize that there's a real problem in the world today. But going into, you know, Facebook thrives on narcissistic tendencies. It just absolutely does. It thrives on narcissistic tendencies. Like, it's totally designed to be self-centered from the ground up. It's like coded to be self-centered. It's coded to be self-absorbing. One of the videos I just watched last week, I'll pull that up. It was a TEDx talk by Roy Virato from week 9. He was sitting there talking about, the different domains of friendship, friendship of virtue, friendship of pleasure. Yes, Dave, you put your hand up.
I just wanted to say it's like the differences between, say, Facebook and DeviantArt are kind of like the differences between Microsoft Windows and Linux, to where like Linux is a useful tool that is easy to learn, whereas Windows is more designed to babysit you and do everything for you and encourage this attitude of entitlement, me, my, gimme, the world owes me everything. Whereas Linux is designed for critical thinking, to where you figure out how to use it and you customize it to the way you want it. So like Facebook versus DeviantArt, you've got DeviantArt that came out of the BBS scene, which was originally about creativity and cooperation and community, and then you've got Facebook that like has come from this Hitler supporting, like literally, like Mark Zuckerberg is literally on record as a Hitler supporter. It's actually kind of creepy, more than just a little, but it totally makes the point that there are different applications and platforms that are literally coded narcissistically, and then there's others that aren't. So even the softwares that we use emulate the human designers of those softwares, because it's humans that created it. So of course Facebook is a very narcissistic software. It really is.
Yeah. As I was just about to say, Roy Varuto was talking about the different types of friendship, and he quoted Aristotle on the different types and virtues and all of that of friendship. And another thing that he really got into was social media usage, those people who disconnect from things going on around them. Now, mind you, I'm a social media nut. I'm an internet nut, and I'm constantly learning things about technology. I'm not perfect. I don't know the 10th of what I could possibly know about technology, and Dave's still teaching me a lot. And even when Dave's taught me everything he knows, me and him will still have tons to learn, because technology is a constantly advancing field. Just when you think you've learned about everything there is, there's a whole bunch of new generation tech that comes out and you're learning all over again. But anyway, Roy Varuto was talking about, how people have this tendency to use Facebook just to disconnect from, what's going on around them, from reality, and, just kind of getting into their own world, as it were. It's all about you on Facebook. And, that kind of really hit home with me, and really kind of just further pointed out what I was talking about in some of my research on how Facebook is really marketed around narcissism, because you see so many people who are uploading selfies and making duck faces and, taking pictures of themselves in the audience, instead of, doing things like, I don't know, interacting with people around them, getting to know people, shaking people's hands, getting to know new people, and I've been guilty of it. I've slumped into Facebook, because I just want to hide from reality. I think everybody's guilty of doing that. We've all done it, at one point or another. But especially the other day, Yes, Dave?
I just wanted to say, at least Facebook Live is designed based around having a group conversation, and is not all like selfie driven, because like as you saw in one of Katarina's last Facebook Live sessions that you were participating in, it was a conversation between her and the people watching. It wasn't just take a selfie and, oh, look at me.
Right. And I mean, yeah, no, there's responsible use of social media, and then there's, irresponsible self-destructive use of social media. It's like what we've talked about with the definition of with the metaphor of a hammer. You can use it to build a house, or you can use it to blow your own kneecaps out. You choose. Either way, it's a piece of steel with a handle. You can pound nails, or you can really screw yourself up with it. You decide what you do with the hammer, but the hammer is still just a hammer. And at the end of the day, that's what Facebook is. It's a hammer. It's a tool. It can be used responsibly. It can be used irresponsibly. But